create trouble for the organization. So you don't want people to get together as a union. So you do everything in your capacity to either remove the need for the union or suppress the formation of the union. So that is the union avoidance strategy. Now, union avoidance strategy has two parts. One is the union suppression strategy, union substitution strategy, where you do so much for your employees that they don't need to form together, they don't need to form a collective. You treat everybody very fairly, you're transparent, you make sure that all the rules are clear for everybody, they're getting more than they expect. You look after their overall welfare, so they don't really feel the need to get together in unions and fight the organization. They have enough troubles of their own anyway. They have work, they have family lives. That is union substitution strategy. You give them an alternative within the organization so they don't feel the need to join an organization. Union suppression strategy is hardball tactics, where you go and you try to create trouble in the formation of unions. So some organizations may see employees getting together and they fear that when they get together, they will bring the management down or they'll demand more or whatever. So in that case, what you do is you make a rule that not more than 5 employees can sit together and have their meals together. You make them go out in shifts. You say you can't take leave together. So you say, okay, one batch will leave you identify who is working till what time, and you see that all the friends are in different shifts and they leave the organization at different times. So they don't have an opportunity to get together within office hours. You say no collection during office hours, and most people don't have the time to engage in such activities during their family time. So you do everything in your capacity to avoid or to make sure that people don't get together as unions. They don't get time to form unions and go and say organization hi. So that is prevented. They're physically in different plants, there's lots more security, you put cameras everywhere. So that is a very high defense strategy. You say, okay, you want to get together in unions, we'll see how you do it. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome.
Ma'am, one more question, ma'am.
Yes.
What is the enhancement strategy, ma'am?
Enhancement strategy? Where was this? I'm sorry, I've taught you so many things. I just look it up. Did we have an enhancement strategy somewhere? Where was this?
First assignment, ma'am.
First assignment.
Last assignment, first question, ma'am.
First question.
Last assignment.
Option.
Okay. No, there is nothing called as an enhancement strategy. That was just a random word that I put to throw you off balance. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
It sounds very important, so I put it in there. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. Pavitra? Yes. No. I'm sorry. Enhancement strategy. I was thinking that you're asking enhancement strategy in terms of unionization. There is nothing called as an enhancement strategy in terms of unionization. But when we talk about the strategy of the organization, when we talk about enhancement strategy, we are essentially talking about enhancing the quality of products and services that you offer to your customers. Okay, so that is how you strategize I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I didn't relate it to the right thing. So when you try and improve the quality of offerings by keeping the core as what it is. Okay, innovation is when you do something new. Enhancement is when you improve the quality of the existing product or service so much that people start preferring it over your competitors. Cost reduction is when you bring down your profits. You take a cut in your profits and the cost is lesser than that of your competitors. I'm sorry. I gave you the wrong answer, but the context was different. Okay. But okay, thank you for staying on. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, this is a general question again. Can we select
Okay.
a whistleblower into an organization?
I'm sorry. Can we select who? Can you please
Can
tell me your name before you ask me the question?
Sindhuja, ma'am.
Sindhuja. Yes, you were there. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Sindhuja. Yes.
Actually, can we select a whistleblower into an organization?
I'm sorry, your
Whistleblower.
voice is breaking up. Can we select what?
A whistleblower.
A business award.
Whistleblower. Whistleblower. WHISTLE.
A whistleblower.
Yeah.
Whistleblower. Yes.
Yeah. Can we select them into an organization?
How would you know that somebody is a whistleblower?
Maybe he or she might have already worked with some other organization.
Why not? Why would you not want a whistleblower in your organization? If you are doing the right thing, then whistleblower will not have anything to do.
Sometimes it might affect to the organization's sales also, ma'am.
Yeah, but see, a whistleblower doesn't usually, there are some perpetual troublemakers. So either they'll become whistleblowers or they'll sabotage the organization or they'll do something to harm the organization. But most of the people who join organizations, I would say more than most of the, or a very large chunk of the people who join organizations do that because they are genuinely interested in working and making an honest living. People become whistleblowers only when they feel hurt to such an extent that they end up exposing things that they know are going to hurt them or people like them. So if you are doing the right thing in your organization, why not? A whistleblower could actually be very helpful to you
Okay.
because they would, somebody who is so perceptive about how things are going wrong joins hands with the organization, they could help improve the organization's overall working, right? So you join hands with them and you say, okay, please tell us where are the rules not being followed, and we will do everything in our capacity to ensure that rules are being followed and the quality of our product and service is so good that people start liking us. So these people could actually help you take your organization ahead of the game.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Good morning, ma'am. I'm Sneha.
Good morning. I'm sorry, your name is?
I'm Sneha, ma'am. Sneha.
Sneha. Yes, Sneha.
Ma'am, I have small doubt regarding English teacher socialization process and diverse teacher socialization process.
Let me pull it up. Yes. Yes. What do you want to know about this?
Ma'am, actually, the differentiating factor between both of them, ma'am.
Okay. See, when in many, what is your basic qualification? Sneha? BCom. Okay. BCom. You're studying a lot of concepts in commerce. Which year are you in?
Huh?
Which year of study? First year.
First MBA.
Second year?
First year MBA, ma'am.
First year MBA. Okay, first year MBA. So you did BCom. And before that, what did you do? Class 12 was what? Science, arts, commerce, arts. Okay, all right. You must have learned a lot of concepts in your BCom. You are learning a lot of things in your first year MBA that you may not end up using in an organization that you join later. Which area of MBA do you want to specialize in when you finish? Finance, right? You would be studying organizational behavior. You would be studying human resources. You would be studying operations management. You may even study management of information systems. You'll study statistics. But when you go and join an organization that deals with finance, you will not be required to use most of the concepts that you learn in your MBA program. Right? You will have an initial training period where they will say, okay, you've learned all this. Now we want you to do something totally different. Okay. So that is a divestiture socialization. We love you. You're perfect. Now change. We take you in because you are of such high caliber. You've done so many good things, but we don't need you to use whatever you have learned. We'll teach you something totally new, and you have to learn that and you have to use that in your job. That is divestiture socialization. Right? Now, if you do your PhD and you become a management teacher and you start teaching whatever it was that you studied, then the organization will say, we like you just the way you are. Or you become a consultant, a general management consultant, and in doing so in your job, you use whatever you have learned in human resources, you use whatever you have learned in organizational behavior, maybe even in marketing, maybe even in operations. You consolidate whatever you have learned, and your output is a result of the information, the inputs you have received through these different courses that you have studied. At that point of time, and somebody says, okay, you have an MBA and you've studied all these things, so you are in a better position to bring all of these concepts together and deliver a solution that draws upon whatever you have learned in these different courses. Right? So that way, if somebody does not try to retrain you, if an organization does not try to retrain you in concepts that are newer, that are very different from what you have already come with, then it is called an investiture socialization process. We like you just the way you are. Please use the skills and attributes and abilities that you have come with. That is investiture socialization. When they say, no, we need you to learn something new, it's great whatever you have done, but we don't need to use all that. That is divestiture socialization. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. All the best, Sneha. Yes, I see somebody from HRM 2 sitting there. HRM 6 has not asked any questions.
Good morning.
HRM 6.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I'm Satya. I'm doing my MBA first year, ma'am. I have one question, ma'am.
Sure, please.
Can you please explain me what is meant by training matrices?
Training matrices.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we covered that here? I don't think so.
No, ma'am. I'm generally asking this question.
No, generally, yeah. Please ask me this question in an email. I'm actually, training matrices are actually just mapped out training needs and what you can do in order to address those training needs. Okay, so they are physical laid down plans of what people's training needs might be and how these needs can be addressed, and they are put on a sheet of paper in the form of a matrix. Okay. In the form of a grid. I'm sorry, I'm in the interest of the short amount of time we have, I would really like to restrict the questions to whatever is there in the material that we have covered. But I'm so glad that you have actually taken the trouble to ask me this question.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish you all the best, Satya. Yes. Somebody from HRM 6. I've had people from different places ask me. 6 has not. Yes, HRM 6. You were the first ones to say hello and you've kept quiet since then, huh?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I'm Sandeep, ma'am. I'm pursuing MBA first year.
I'm sorry, you are who?
Sandeep, ma'am.
You're Sangeet.
Sandeep.
Sandeep. Okay. Yes, Sandeep.
And I want to know about negligent training, ma'am. What is negligent
Sorry?
training? What is
Negligent training. Yes. Negligent training is when you train your employees in things that they don't need to use. I believe there was a question about it in one of the assignments, right? Yeah?
Third assignment, first question.
First question in the third assignment. Okay. A software company training its employees how to fix their motorbikes would be carrying out negligent training. For the simple reason that you are teaching them. Somebody says, okay, 80% of our employees come on motorbikes, so let's teach them how to fix their motorbikes. Well, the ultimate goal of a software company is not to make its employees into motor mechanics. It is to get output in terms of whatever software it is designing and serving its customers with their software needs, right? So even though it is aimed at helping the employees, it is not going to do anything for the organization as such. That is why this qualifies as negligent training. This is an example. Otherwise, negligent training refers to you imparting some training just because you have to give people some training, but you imparting some training that is not going to be directly helpful in the company's achievement of its primary goals. Does that answer your question, Sandeep?
Thank you.
Okay. Wish you all the best. You're welcome. You're welcome. HRM 6, are you ready with your question? Most shy group, huh? HRM 6. Such a sweet bunch of people and absolutely very, very shy. What's going on?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
This is Vigneshwaran from second MBA. This is Vigneshwaran from second MBA.
I cannot see you. Who is this?
This is Vigneshwaran from second MBA, ma'am.
Vignesh, I need to see you on the screen. I'm not able to see you. Which,
Oh, ma'am.
where, you are in HRM 6?
HRM 2, ma'am.
HRM 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we please pull up? Yes, now I can see you. Vignesh, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, now I can see you. Yes, please ask me.
Can I know about descriptive bargaining, integrative bargaining?
Sorry?
Can I know about meaning of integrative bargaining and descriptive meaning?
Descriptive bargaining, distributive.
Integrative bargaining.
Integrative and distributive bargaining.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, integrative bargaining is collaboration. Collaborative bargaining. You go to the market and you ask your vegetable vendor, how much? Which is your favorite fruit, Vignesh?
Apple.
Apple. So you go to the market and the person says, the vegetable, the fruit vendor says, I'm going to charge you 200 rupees a kilo for apples. You love apples. You don't want to pay 200 rupees, but you like them so much that you'll say, okay, can you please come down? And you have some idea in your mind that apples are going to cost you 50 rupees a kilo. This fellow asks you for 200. So you come down a little and you say, okay, I'll give you a little bit more. Let's settle at 100. He says, no. From 200, I'll come down only to 175. And then eventually he comes down to 150. You go up to 150 and you settle at 150. So you're paying 100 rupees more, but still not as much as this fellow asked you for. This person is charging you 50 rupees less than what he had asked you for. So you both come to an understanding that is not as comfortable. Vignesh, I need you to be up on the screen, please. Can we please pull up Vignesh? Yeah. So this person is giving up a little of what he had hoped to get. Okay. And you are also giving up a little bit of the savings. You had thought that you would buy some other fruit with the remaining 100 rupees, but you love apples so much that you're willing to pay up to maybe 150 rupees for the apples. Okay, so you give up a little bit of what you have in exchange for something that you need more. This person gives up a little bit for what he has in exchange for a customer who's going to be happy with him and he will come back for it. Okay, as opposed to distributive bargaining, you go to fixed price shops and you say, how much does this cost? They'll say 200 rupees. You say, I will give you only 150. They say, leave. We will not sell it to you for less than 200 rupees. You take it or leave it. That is the simplest method, the simplest example that I can give you. Another example would be when you go together, when you meet somebody with whom you have a difference of opinion, you both let go of a little bit of what you want and get together and make something totally different. You want to have a project with somebody. So you say, this is what I would like to do. You have the skills, somebody has the money. You say, I will help you make a company of, or we will get together and make a new brand of cell phones that are solar powered, for example. So you say solar powered cell phones, they are never out of battery. If there's bright sunlight, they will work. This person says, well, solar cells will have to be imported from China. No, that's not good. Let's do something different. Let's do solar powered, maybe solar powered laptops, for example. Cell phones, everybody is making cell phones. So why don't you make solar powered laptops? And you say, well, I'll get very good business. If I have the money, I can maybe do something different with that money. Maybe I'll be able to start a different company with that money. So you are not interested in making laptops, but somebody else is willing to fund you to make solar powered laptops. Okay. So you say, no, not solar powered laptops. Let's make solar powered tablets. So you both give up a little bit of what you want and you come to an understanding, and in the end, the solar powered tablet functions both as a laptop and as a cell phone. Right? So it's not something that is totally wanted by one person, but it is somewhere in the middle. That is integrative or collaborative bargaining. Okay? And distributive is when you say take it or leave it. Okay? Either you agree to my conditions in the context of unionization, you either accept all of the conditions of the union, or you say you go do whatever you want. You want to go on a dharna, you go on a dharna, you shut down your work, we'll throw you out. We will not accede to your demands. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you.
Huh? Okay. Yes.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Ma'am, I'm Krishna Priya.
You are?
Krishna Priya.
Vishnu Priya. Yes, Vishnu Priya.
Ma'am, my question is what is about deficient
Deficient?
training? Training, ma'am.
Deficient training.
Yes.
Okay. Deficient training means that you don't give people enough training to help them to do their jobs properly. Okay. Negligent training is when the training is totally opposite of what you need them to do. Deficient training is you don't have enough funds, so you give them only partial training and it's not enough for them to do whatever they need to do with it. Okay, it's not complete. It is lacking in some aspect or another. For example, as far as computer training is concerned, you have enough money, you get people. Now, you use a computer. You realize that you cannot become proficient in using a computer till you practice on it, right? So if you were to give somebody deficient training, you would expose them to some program on the computer for 2 or 3 days intensive exposure, and after that take those computers away and tell them that they can go through this program 6 months from then or a year from then, because you don't have the resources to provide them with this specific program or resource to practice on for the next 5-6 months. So they forget whatever they have learned. They learn, they do very well in the first 3 days, but as soon as this resource is taken away, they don't have any opportunity to practice and they are left with this partial knowledge that fades away because of lack of practice. That is deficient training.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Who are we missing? I think we have time only for maybe one short question. We've done HRM 1, 2, 4, 6. Is HRM 3? Is there any HRM 3? No. Okay, so we've addressed all the different groups. HRM 6 has still not asked me a question. I would really like to go to HRM 6. Yes, and somebody is waiting at HRM 6, huh? Please. Yes, hi. Finally.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
I'm Liban.
Deepan.
Liban.
Yes.
Liban. Yes.
Spell it out for me,
Can
please.
you please tell me about the importance of incentives? What, ma'am?
Can you please spell out your name for me so I know who I'm talking to? I couldn't.
Importance of incentives. Liban. Liban.
Liban.
Liban. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. Sorry. What do you want to ask me?
Uh,
Your voice is breaking up.
Incentives in pay. Important.
Can you please write your question down and just put it up on the screen? Just write your question down. Write it on a piece of paper because your voice is breaking up. But I really want to talk to your group because you've been there from the very beginning. I can't read. Oh, what is the importance of incentives in pay and rewards? You tell me. Yeah, importance of incentives in pay and reward, right? What do you mean by incentives?
Incentives. I don't know.
You don't know? Incentives are additional things that you give to your employees to make them feel happy for what they are doing for the organization. Okay, reward is related to the output. They do something really well, and you reward them for it. Pay is exact compensation. Okay, incentives are something more. You go the extra mile. You say, okay, all of our employees are so wonderful. We have some extra money. We've made some additional profits and we would like to help out our employees with those additional profits. So we'll do something more. You build a club. Give them a place to get together. Have a little canteen, subsidized canteen for them. Give them a treat once in a while. Okay, incentives. So what is the importance when you do this for employees? They feel good about serving the organization. They feel that the organization treats them like human beings, not just as machines. And the organization is genuinely concerned about their welfare and happiness, which adds to their satisfaction, which in turn helps them become more productive. And it increases the loyalty they have to the organization. Does that answer your question? Yes? Okay. All right. All the best. Yes. One last question. I can see probably a teacher and HRM1 waiting. Yes.
Yes, I'm Dr. Adilakshmi from PVP, Vijayawada.
Yes, Dr. Adilakshmi.
Yes,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, our students enjoy your sessions. That's
Thank you.
just I want to tell.
Thank you
they
so
enjoy.
much, Doctor. I can't see your face. Can you please have the camera next to your face? I can only see your partial face. Can you have the... yes. A little higher up.
Yeah, our students enjoyed a lot your sessions. And
Thank you.
They enhance their knowledge also through your sessions.
Thank you.
Yeah. After all the things, just they want to say one word. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, ma'am, this is Sindhuja.
Yes, Sindhu.
Our students, we really liked your sessions, ma'am. We are really very thankful for your classes and everything. You reached us very well. So,
Thank you.
Is there any chance of coming to AP, ma'am?
I would love to. I've been... How nice. Thank you so much for that invitation. I really have tears in my eyes. You can't see that on the screen. But please send me a formal invitation and I'm sure my institute would be very happy to send me there. And no, I would love to come and visit you all and meet you all in person. Thank you so much. You're all welcome to visit Kharagpur also sometime. We'd love to have you here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. God bless you. All of you. All the very best to all of my students. This is so nice. You know, seriously, my stress of this whole semester has been taken away by this 1 hour session. So I really have tears in my eyes now. Thank you. Wish you all the very best. And big thanks, big clap for Saurabh. He's sitting here, doing very well. He's the one who's uploading all your videos on time. He's the one who's sending you assignments. He's the one who's responding to your queries. And he's the one reminding me that I need to take care of certain things. So, and of course the team here at IIT Kharagpur, the CET team. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best. I hope to connect with you again through a different course in future.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you from
Bye. Thank you.